All right, now I've got all the boards ripped to size. I need 8 of each because there's 4 boards per side, and I've got a few extra that I cut here just in case I had a problem. Next step is going to be cutting these to length, and because of the wood that I'm having to use, I'm using, you know, uh, basically scrap materials when you get down to it. I still have to have pieces that are kind of flat. They don't have cup or twist in them because I just don't really have a way of dealing with that. I am becoming a woodworker, not a wood hacker anymore, but I still only have a certain amount that I can do. And for the long pieces, I only have 8 pieces that I think are really going to work. And one of them is actually already just a tad shorter than the original size I was going to make. So I'm going to adjust my length from 32 inches to like 31 3/4 or something. Here we have a radial arm saw. I haven't shown this in other videos because I haven't used it for any of the projects lately. But I'm going to be using it on this one because I'm going to be cutting, longer boards. The 36-inch boards or 32-inch. This is set up, and actually you can see my son's project in the background. He's actually working on it. It's set up with this workbench where I can cut longer boards with it, and the chop saw is not really set up for that. I've cut stuff as long as 2 feet, maybe a little bit longer, but it doesn't have as big a table on it, and it's just, this is just going to be, I think it's going to be a lot better. This is too long to do on the chop saw. At least the way that I have the chop saw set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some kind of stop block right over here on the table, and that'll give an exact length to the saw blade, and I'll be able to make multiple cuts of the same length. So that's the plan anyway. Okay, since the board is actually already cut square on both ends, I'm just going to put it up against the fence here and lightly touch it against the saw teeth. Make that maybe a little. There we go. Can use that to mark this spot. This is a workbench. That's what it's for. I don't want to fill it too full of holes, but those holes are really small. And oh, that's the wrong bit. Now that's the right bit. Now I'll be able to make all the same length cuts. Something I do have to do first, though, is cut these boards to a shorter length, get a nice end on one side, and then cut to final length on the chop saw. They're on the radial arm saw. So I'm going to have to do that first. All right, so what I've done, I've cut these just a little bit longer than the final length, and I also chose which part of the board to cut off, because this obviously has problems, and quite a few of them are like this. This is kind of scrap wood when you get down to it, so like I said, that's going to give it make it rustic, as I've said before. But now I'm ready to go ahead and make the cuts on the radial arm saw, and I've got them all lined up so that the original good end. This is the end that the waste was cut off before, and I'll trim the final end here. Measure. That right? Yep. And that's 31 7/8 is what the original was. So it looks like it's working right. And do that with the rest. All right. All the boards have been cut to length now. The boards for the front and back. And there's a stack for the boards that are going to be for the sides. And those pieces right there are going to be used for making the pieces from the lid and the very bottom pieces, which will going to have legs on them. And that's just some actually other stuff that happens to be on the table. I'm going to go through now and select which boards are going to be used for the front of the chest and which will be on the back. Obviously, the nicest looking ones will go on the front. And part of that process is going to be picking which side goes in and which side goes out. And because things with more problems, I'll just put them on the inside of the chest and it won't be that big a deal. We'll see how that all goes. I won't go through all the selection process of, because that'll be boring for you, but you get the idea. But as an example, you can see that on this board, there's staple holes and a gouge and more staple holes. And on the other side, well, it's got hammer marks and stuff. And neither side looks really great. So more than likely, this one is going to be on the back. And then going to be a decision which goes out and which goes in, because it's not that great. Here we have one that's got this big knot in it. That's kind of unsightly, and that's kind of unsightly too. That's probably going to be on the back too. And this piece here actually looks pretty nice, except for it's got holes, 3 nail holes and splits on the end. Well, the way these pieces are going to go together in box joints, they're going to have a cutout and a tab, a cutout, a tab, a cutout, a tab, a cutout, a tab. So they're going to alternate. Some are going to have 3 cutouts, some are going to have 2. I'm going to make this one the one with 3, and those pieces will go away. that's just an example of how to make the best, make do the best you can with what you have. Like, which is reworded version of do what you can with what you have where you are. I have separated them into two sets. One set for that's going to be the front, the other that's going to be the back, and the one on the right is for the front, and the best side of the boards is up and on the back. And what I've chosen to be the best sides on the board is up. So, and after that, it's also best to try to arrange them where the grain direction's running all the same, which, hey, Google that on how to figure that out. Sometimes it's easy to see, sometimes it's not. But if you notice the grain pattern here, you've got this point here. Okay, well, we have a similar pattern there in this. And here too. This one is a little more problematic because if you notice on the end grains, that board there and those two are not from the center of the tree, but that one is. So the grain pattern's a little different, and I'm not sure which direction is right. But one of the reasons you want to do that is if you end up having to plane them once you join them together, and if there's any uneven surfaces, planing is the best. It's good to have all the grain running in the same direction. Now, I am hoping to not plane these, and that's the next step. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to try to make that happen in the next step, which is setting these up to join them together using pocket hole screws. So here we have two of the boards that I'm going to be joining with pocket hole screws. And now we're coming to one of the issues with dealing with cheap material or free material, scrap material. Although these things are mostly the same, they're actually not the same thickness. So I'm going to have to make sure that the surface I want flat, without any bump like that, it's going to have to be down on the workbench when I join them. And also, well, if you notice this, see that wobble? There's a little bit of twist to this. I mean, I went and picked what I thought were straight boards without any twist, and this one actually, it has some cup to it, a little bit. I remember I went and specifically found ones that didn't have any of that, but the temperature has also changed, and when that happens, a lot of times wood will change shape. So, but I'll either give up on using this, or I'm going to do what I can with what I have where I am, which is what I'm going to do. And hopefully I will not have to do too much surface finishing to get this smooth. Also, note the boards aren't joining parallel. Turns out I forgot to double check the table saw blade if it was perpendicular to the table, and it has worked its way out of perpendicularity. I had set it a while back, and one of the issues with that table saw is that it doesn't lock down really well. So in using it and the vibration you get, it has worked its way out from being straight up and down, or at least 90 degrees to the table. And now I'm going to have to deal with that. And I can't trim the board off anymore because I need them 5 inches wide, which, of course, since they're not perpendicular, they're also not, the cuts aren't perpendicular, then they're also not the same length across the top. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to join them, and it's probably going to end up leaving a little bit of a split there. And I think I'm going to leave it that way rather than putting them together and having them not be straight and then having to force them straight when I try to join them together as the whole piece, as the whole chest. But so if I join it together like that and I leave that crack, That's going to be okay, I think, when I stain it, because it won't show up as bad. It's obviously going to be there, but right now it shows up bad because we have light wood and a dark crack. If we have dark stained wood, it will be less noticeable. And since I'm doing this a little bit late and Christmas is fast approaching, I'm having to deal with it instead of starting from scratch. Well, I've decided to start over. After looking at those pieces, I realized, well, it's going to be too difficult to work with them. I'm not going to throw away those pieces. I'll do something else with them. I was hoping to use those things up. They've got quite a stack of them. Um, but it may work out for the best because I'm going to be using boards that are actually a lot nicer quality and going to have a lot less problems with them. And I'll probably get done sooner working with those than I would making do with the ones I was working with. That's one of those decisions you need to make sometimes where you go, wait a minute, I need to stop what I'm doing, reassess, and either and decide whether I need to keep going or start over. And like I said, many times you're going to start over, and the time's not necessarily wasted because, like I said, I think it's going to actually be easier for me to work with these other boards, and I will have readjusted my table saw and made sure everything's okay before proceeding. And hopefully not make any other mistakes like that. God bless you all. See you next time.